Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring through these videos his disillusionism and trying to understand the misalgic theory within this philosophy that explains human behavior as aversion to suffering. And as many of you know, week after week, we've been trying to apply these concepts, these thoughts to everyday life, trying to see how they are illustrated what was happening around us. We are in late October 2021, still amidst the COVID pandemic. And today we are going to analyze from a disillusionist point of view a certain type of behavior that has become especially prevalent during the pandemic. And it's the behavior that has us predicting the future, sort of trying to anticipate what will happen, and divides us in optimists and pessimists, whether we think that what's going to happen is good or bad. So we are going to try and explain this from a misalgic point of view.
Well, we're talking about the pandemics, and during these pandemics, we have been seeing a lot of prediction going around. As the nature of prediction is 95% of it incorrect, but that's how predictions work. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can always think, you cannot predict anything. Listen, if we take all the predictions and we find that only one in 10 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 20 is correct, we can say quite seriously that predictions don't work. We wouldn't take anything, but it doesn't work that way. We still predict, and predictions are part of the way we are built. This is being human. Being human is to predict. Let me remind everybody, we are 3 computers. Yes, any animal is just one computer. Yes, it's a computer. It's a biological computer, and we are also a biological computer. And we have 2 more computers in addition to the animal one in us. That's the one that can predict the future and can think in the past. Yes, when as an animal there is only now and here, nothing else, never, nothing else. The rest is just giving us some kind of projections over time. That's what computer number 2 does. And computer number 3, to remind everybody also, is the moral conscious. So it has an infinite time span, and not just my past, is the past of my people, and it's not just my future, it's the future of the human race. So these 3 computers are operating in a different time frame. When there is a big conflict, computer number 1 wins always. Our animal in us, we will win in extreme situations. And it's also the fastest one. Yes? The first thing is the animal. Then it goes together with that. That explanation of the system of 3 computers is important for computer number 2, the one that does predictions. And here comes 2 issues talking about optimist and pessimist. You see, when you make a prediction, when I make a prediction, I am not an optimist or I'm being a pessimist. I'm a realist. And so is everybody else. But for me, the others are either pessimists or optimists. Of course, there is few here and there realists, but we don't need them because we have our own opinion, which is the one that is realistic.
Whenever you agree, whenever you exactly coincide.
That means we are the measure of pessimism and realism. Of other people's pessimism and realism. Still, when you have pessimist views or optimist views, those views are reflecting a certain state of mind. Now, we run away from suffering. And the question is, why being a pessimist is good for some people as a suffering aversion method, and why optimism is in the others. First of all, what do you think about the first part of the analysis?
I'm interested about that, but I was going to ask you exactly in the same direction. What's the misalgic source of prediction as such? I know you're going to explain us how is it that an optimist averts certain type of suffering? How is it that a pessimist averts certain type of suffering? But I was going to ask you before that, how is it that predicting the future help us with the fear of uncertainty, with the pain of not knowing what will come? What are the sufferings behind predicting as such? And then, of course, it's interesting to know what's the specific suffering behind an optimist prediction or a pessimist prediction.
The first question is, do we decide what kind of, first of all, can we decide to predict or not to predict? And the second one, can we give it the lean? Do we consciously lean towards one side or the other? Are they in our control? The answer is, as a disillusionist, is probably no. You don't decide to make predictions. It is in your personality to do it. It is already it's not just your ability to make predictions, because you could be a very bad predictor and still doing predictions all the time. We know them. We know many of those people. And then but when I decided, once I'm making a prediction, the prediction is out there, and it really happens to us. I don't think there is. Here and there, you could control. You could decide. I could ask you now to predict how will be the game between Manchester City and Chelsea, or what will be the weather tomorrow in southern Greenland. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the prediction. And prediction. And your question is very good, because why is it good to predict when you run away from suffering? The answer is, if you predict, is because it gives you some kind of redress, some kind of alleviation of that. So here the question is, once again, when we're talking about the future, number one suffering, I mean, maybe in general, is fear. So this has to do with fear, of course. So the question is, where do we go? Why somebody is an optimist and somebody is a pessimist? First of all, let me remind you, this is you decide what is pessimist and optimist. There is a question that comes before that. And the question is, how operative, how useful is your prediction? What can you do something about it? Is there something you can do about it? So if you predict that tomorrow is going to rain, you could take with you an umbrella. That's a prediction that it's actionable. You can do, you can act upon it. And then there is the other one, that an asteroid will destroy the Earth in 2 days. It doesn't have to be correct. And then what you could do? Nothing. I mean, looking at the asteroid, waiting for it. I don't know what you can do. Hide. So maybe we'll miss you. So this kind of stuff, it makes a difference. And here, pessimists and optimists don't share. It's not equal. The world is not equal to them. The one who is pessimist probably will, if there is it's an actionable prediction, will do something about it. Maybe he will overdo. Maybe he will very much overdo it, but he will take it. The optimist, in general, is more of things will resolve by themselves. Of course, there is the optimist who says, I'll solve the problem. I don't know what if this is, but I will solve it. There are some people like that, but most of the people are not like that. So why, again, if pessimism is more useful, why do we tend to be more optimists than pessimists? The answer to that question is very simple. It is because the pessimist is more afraid of what he will suffer once this will happen, and the optimist is not afraid of what will happen at the end. He does not want to suffer now.
No.
What do you mean doesn't want? Nobody wants to suffer now, of course. But in the way things are woven into his personality, he becomes an optimist. And that way, when things happen, they happen. The other one, of course, goes around and suffers. And many times, because he's a pessimist, he's surprised, but on the good side. So at the end, when you look at the calculus, at the way the accounting was made, the suffering accounting, because I don't know who is the one that did better, the optimist or the pessimist. It will, of course, depend on many things. But this, I would say, is the issue. No?
Absolutely. I can see from this point of view, I can speak for myself. During the pandemic, I've listened to many pessimistic predictions, and I did so in order to better prepare, in order to take action, considering those possibilities. I also listened to many optimistic predictions, and those brought me comfort. Those somehow alleviated my fear and my suffering. But in general, I want to ask you, what's the source of all these many predictions we've been hearing? Because as we said in the beginning, and I think this is manifest to us all, there was a sort of inflation of predictions during the pandemic. There were many more than what's usual out there in the media. I understand now how it was that I paid attention to the pessimists and how it was that I paid attention to the optimists as I ran away from suffering. But why were they broadcasting so many predictions? What's the source of that?
Well, here you have several things. First, let me remind everybody that at 2020, March 2020, nobody had an idea what's going on, but every government was popular. Interesting. Why would almost every government on the face of the earth became suddenly popular? Because credibility was at a high. Okay, you have to be an optimist that these guys can run the pandemic, and that is almost, and I would say, a bias you cannot. The attraction is too strong of that kind of bias, and to believe that they can do it. Of course, they had no chance to make things right because they had no idea what they were doing because they were not prepared for that. We talked about it several weeks ago. These people have no idea. They still have no idea till today. They probably walking into one day a big trial against many of them, what I call the Nuremberg kind of trial. But this is not important. The important thing is that people were, and when confidence was broken again and again and again and again, the need for predictions became higher, bigger and bigger and bigger, because the predictions this guy made never materialized. The guys who said, that's it, Freedom Day, now they have a problem in the UK. They understood they could not. And this happens every week. There is some country predicting, that's it. That's the end of the pandemic. Famous last words. Singapore is an excellent example. New Zealand, which is now buckling under the weight of this pandemic. So nobody. So we have a lot of people making predictions. But consumption of the prediction is bigger because I need something to make me sleepwalk. The word, we always come back to the same word. How do I don't suffer? How do I avert suffering totally? By sleepwalking. How do I sleepwalk? If things are predictable. I have to be able to predict that from my house to the train station, all the sidewalks are fine. There are no holes there. If I walk, I don't have to think about it. That's what permits me to sleepwalk from here to the train, or to sleepwalk in not only in space, in time. That kind of things needs predictions. And bad or good ones, better ones, but even bad ones. So you know that you have to be careful, and I don't know, it may rain. There is 1% chance of rain, so you go out with your umbrella and everything. It doesn't matter. It's not important. What is important is not what happens. What is important is could you or could you not sleepwalk, and what was the price? So the problem with all this is sleepwalking. Optimists, people do that so they can sleepwalk. Pessimists do that so they can sleepwalk. It's always about sleepwalking.
We are almost out of time, according to our self-imposed time limit. But if you want to make some final remark, we'll fit it in the last minute, and then we'll say goodbye.
I want to fit another thing. There is a side thing. Why people do give prognosis? Why people anticipate stuff publicly? And there are three things that we discovered. One is hedging. You know, I already, this is the only recommendation I ever made on videos, and I will do it again. If tomorrow one of your teams plays against another team, and it's the one that you like, and it makes you very happy if that team wins, bet on the other one. So you have hedged yourself. You know that if whatever happens, you not everything was lost, or maybe you can walk again with a smile. That's hedging, and that's what you do with prognosis. Okay, you say one thing just in case something else happens. Many times it has to do with hedging. The other one has to do with communications. You see, our communication network is broken. It's broken. Yes, we can talk over here, but we have a mask, and over the mask there is a plastic, and then there is another mask, and then there is another person. Communication is a disaster. I've never seen more misunderstandings ever in the history of mankind. All the time a misunderstanding. People are fighting because they cannot hear each other. So one of the ways to communicate is to communicate a state of mind. If I make a prediction that the pandemic is going to end in 2 months, I'm communicating my state of mind. If I would say this is never going to end, and we're going to be stuck all the time here, and I will keep on talking with the plastic and the mask and the other mask and the other plastic, this is what will happen. That also has to do with to communicate. And finally, there is an enchantment has to do with the prophecy. Remember, at the end, what is the prognosis plus ethics? Prophecy.
Prophecy.
So here there is a whole thing of being a prophet. Yes. And remember another thing: 99% or 95%, I don't know what, very high percent of people do not make their own forecast. It's from somebody else. It's quoted, it's imitated, it's whatever. So there is really, there is no here a lot of people making prognosis. No, there is very few people, but a lot of people listening and rebroadcasting. Those were my 3 little things that I wanted to say at the end.
Great. I predict we'll carry on next week. And that's an optimistic forecast on my side.
Or depends for whom.
See you.
See you.
Goodbye.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.